Have you ever found yourself at the bottom of a bag of chips, a box of cookies, or a pint of ice cream with only a vague memory of how you got there? You weren't truly hungry, yet you couldn't stop. You may have even told yourself, just one more, a dozen times over, feeling as though some other force was in control of your hand. In that moment, a wave of confusion and often guilt washes over you. You ask yourself the question that has plagued millions: why can't I stop? Why do I have no willpower? It is a question that we internalize as a deep, personal failing. We label ourselves as weak, undisciplined, or lacking in moral character. But what if this struggle has very little to do with willpower at all? What if your inability to resist that second, third, and 10th cookie is not a sign of a flawed personality, but rather a sign that your brain, a magnificent survival machine honed over millions of years, has been successfully and systematically hijacked? Today, we embark on a profound journey into the very heart of our cravings. We will venture deep into the intricate wiring of the human brain, explore the delicate symphony of our hormones, and uncover the ancient evolutionary programming that is still running the show today. This is not a conversation about shame or blame. It is a conversation about biology, chemistry, and the brilliant, often invisible engineering of the modern food environment. Our goal is to replace self-criticism with scientific understanding. We are going to unravel the mystery of why certain foods seem to cast a spell over us, to understand why your brain can feel like both your greatest ally and your most formidable adversary. By the end of our journey, you will come to see that you are not weak. You are simply human, equipped with an ancient brain that is trying to navigate a dangerously modern world. And with that understanding comes the first, most crucial step toward reclaiming your power. To understand our modern predicament, we must first travel back in time, far back into our evolutionary past. For the vast majority of human history, our ancestors lived in a world of profound scarcity. Food was not a guarantee. Calories were a precious currency, and the search for them was the primary occupation of daily life. In this environment, the human brain developed a highly sophisticated set of survival programs designed to ensure we would seek out and consume the most energy-dense foods available. Our very survival depended on it. The brain evolved to release a powerful sense of pleasure and reward when we found and ate three specific things: sugar, fat, and salt. These weren't just tasty, they were life itself. Let's consider each of these. Sugar, in its natural form like ripe fruit or a drizzle of honey, was a rare and valuable source of quick energy. It provided the immediate fuel needed to hunt, gather, or flee from danger. A brain that was hardwired to find sweetness intensely pleasurable was a brain that would motivate its owner to climb a tall tree for a piece of fruit, ensuring their survival. Fat was even more precious. Fat is the most calorically dense nutrient, providing a long-lasting, stable source of energy. Consuming fat from an animal or a handful of nuts could mean the difference between surviving a long winter or a period of famine. A brain that did not find the taste and texture of fat rewarding would have belonged to an individual who was less likely to build up necessary energy reserves and, therefore, less likely to pass on their genes. And finally, there was salt. Salt is an essential mineral, critical for maintaining the proper fluid balance in our bodies, for nerve function, and for muscle contraction. But in nature, salt can be hard to come by. Our ancestors didn't have salt shakers. They had to find it in the environment. Therefore, our brains evolved a powerful, innate drive to seek out and consume salt whenever it was available. This ancient survival programming, seek sugar for quick energy, seek fat for stored energy, seek salt for essential function, is not just a part of our history. It is etched into the very core of our neural circuitry. It is the operating system that is still running in your brain today. Now let's fast forward to the 21st century. We no longer live in a world of scarcity. For many of us, we live in a world of overwhelming abundance. We are surrounded by food 24 hours a day. And this is not the food of our ancestors. The modern food industry, with its teams of scientists and billions of dollars in research, has learned to tap into our ancient survival programming with an almost surgical precision. They have taken the three things our brains are hardwired to crave: sugar, fat, and salt, and have concentrated them, refined them, and combined them in ways that simply do not exist in nature. An apple is sweet, but it also contains fiber and water, which slow down the absorption of its sugar and fill you up. An avocado is fatty, but it's also rich in nutrients and fiber. The foods that we find ourselves unable to stop eating, the potato chips, the ice cream, the pizza, the frosted pastries, are what food scientists call hyperpalatable. They are engineered to deliver a perfectly calculated combination of these bliss point ingredients, creating a sensory explosion that our ancient brains have absolutely no defense against. It's the difference between seeing a small, flickering candle and being hit with a stadium-level laser show. Both are light, but the intensity and the impact are worlds apart. This is the fundamental mismatch. We are running ancient survival software in a modern environment that has been perfectly designed to exploit it. To understand how this hijacking occurs, we need to meet the lead actor in this neurological drama, a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is often misunderstood and mislabeled as the pleasure molecule. While it is involved in pleasure, its primary role is actually one of motivation, anticipation, and seeking. Dopamine is the wanting chemical. Its job is to get you off the couch and motivate you to do things that your brain believes are important for your survival, like eating, drinking, and procreating. It works through a specific network in the brain called the reward pathway. When you do something your brain deems beneficial, a small cluster of cells in your brainstem, the VTA, releases a little squirt of dopamine into another area called the nucleus accumbens. This dopamine signal then travels to your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, which logs the memory and says, "That was good. Let's remember what we did to get that feeling, and let's do it again." This system is what drives you to seek out food when you are hungry. The anticipation of eating releases dopamine, which motivates you to find food. This is a perfect, life-sustaining system when dealing with the rewards found in nature. But when you consume a hyperpalatable, engineered food, something very different happens. The combination of concentrated sugar, fat, and salt creates a dopamine response that is far more intense and rapid than anything your brain evolved to handle. It's a super physiological flood of dopamine, a tidal wave that overwhelms the system. Your prefrontal cortex gets this incredibly strong signal that says, "This is not just good. This is the most important thing you have ever done for your survival. Drop everything and do this again immediately." The problem is, the brain is not just a passive receiver. It's an adaptive organ. It strives for balance, a state called homeostasis. When it is repeatedly flooded with this unnaturally high level of dopamine, it starts to protect itself from the overstimulation. It does this by reducing the number of dopamine receptors available. It's like turning down the volume on a speaker that is blasting music too loudly. This process is called downregulation, and it has two devastating consequences. First, you now have fewer receptors to receive the dopamine signal. This means that the same food, that one scoop of ice cream that used to feel so satisfying, no longer provides the same reward. You need more of it, 2 scoops, then 3, just to get back to that initial feeling. This is the biological definition of tolerance, a classic hallmark of addiction. Second, this downregulation affects your entire dopamine system. With fewer receptors, the natural rewards of life, a walk in nature, a conversation with a friend, the satisfaction of completing a project, also release less of a reward signal. Life starts to feel a little more gray, a little less vibrant. The only thing that seems to bring back that feeling of pleasure is the one thing that caused the problem in the first place, the hyperpalatable food. You are now caught in a vicious cycle. You are not just eating for pleasure, you are eating to feel normal. The brain's reward system is not the only biological player in this drama. There is a whole symphony of hormones in your body that are designed to regulate hunger, satiety, and energy storage. Modern foods have learned to disrupt this symphony, turning its beautiful music into a chaotic noise. Let's start with the most famous one: insulin. As we've discussed in other contexts, when you eat a meal high in refined sugar and carbohydrates, your blood sugar spikes, and your pancreas releases insulin to manage it. But these hyperpalatable foods create such a rapid and massive spike that you get a correspondingly massive release of insulin. This insulin surge often overshoots, causing your blood sugar to crash a short time later. When your blood sugar is low, your body sends out an urgent alarm. It's a state of physiological stress. Your brain, desperate for a quick energy source to bring blood sugar back up, begins to scream for the one thing it knows will work the fastest: more sugar. This is not a psychological craving for something tasty. This is a deep, primal, physiological craving driven by a state of emergency. You are on the blood sugar roller coaster, and the only way to stop the nauseating drop is to get another hit of the substance that put you on the ride. Then there are the two key hormones that conduct the conversation of hunger: ghrelin and leptin. You can think of ghrelin as the go hormone. It is produced in your stomach, and its levels rise when your stomach is empty. It travels to your brain and signals it's time to eat. Leptin is the stop hormone. It is produced by your fat cells, and its job is to signal to your brain that you have enough energy stored and that you can stop eating. In a healthy, functioning system, these two hormones work in a beautiful, balanced dance. But modern foods can trip up the dancers. Ghrelin is not just stimulated by an empty stomach. The mere sight, smell, or even the thought of a hyperpalatable food can cause ghrelin levels to surge, creating a powerful feeling of hunger even when you have just eaten. Leptin, on the other hand, can become a victim of a condition called leptin resistance. When you consume a diet high in processed foods, particularly high fructose corn syrup, and carry excess body fat, your fat cells are constantly pumping out high levels of leptin. Just like with dopamine, the brain can become desensitized to this constant signal. The message of, "You're full, stop eating," is being sent, but the brain is no longer listening. Your body is shouting that it has enough energy, but your brain is convinced it is starving, driving you to eat more and store more fat. Your off switch for hunger is effectively broken. Beyond the deep biology of the brain and hormones, we must also acknowledge the powerful role of our psychology and our environment. We are not just biological machines. We are emotional beings, and we have been conditioned from birth to associate food with comfort, celebration, and love. This is the realm of emotional eating. When you are feeling stressed, your body releases the stress hormone cortisol. One of the effects of cortisol is to increase your appetite and motivation to eat, specifically for foods that are high in sugar and fat. From a survival perspective, this makes sense. Stress signals danger, and in dangerous times, your body wants to stock up on energy. But in our modern world, the stress is not a physical threat but a difficult boss or a looming deadline. The biological response is the same. That pint of ice cream is not just sugar and fat. It's a temporary chemical balm, a way to self-medicate and numb the uncomfortable feelings of anxiety, loneliness, sadness, or boredom. It provides a quick, reliable dopamine hit that momentarily distracts from the emotional pain. This emotional link is reinforced through the power of habit and conditioning. Our brains are brilliant at forming associations. If you eat a bowl of chips every night while you watch your favorite show, your brain begins to form a powerful neural pathway linking the two. The cue, sitting down to watch TV, becomes inextricably linked to the routine, eating chips, and the reward, the dopamine hit, and the feeling of relaxation. Eventually, the cue alone is enough to trigger the craving. You sit on the couch and your brain automatically starts to anticipate the chips, releasing a little bit of dopamine that creates the wanting. This is not conscious thought. It is a deeply ingrained habit loop. Breaking this loop requires more than just willpower. It requires consciously identifying the cue and actively replacing the routine with a new one that provides a similar reward. Finally, we must zoom out and look at the world around us. We live in what scientists call an obesogenic environment, an environment that is perfectly designed to promote weight gain and unhealthy eating habits. We are constantly, relentlessly bombarded with triggers. Advertisements on television and social media show glistening, slow-motion shots of hyper-palatable foods. Convenience stores and gas stations place candy and soda at eye level right by the checkout counter. Restaurants have dramatically increased their portion sizes over the decades, normalizing a level of consumption that was once considered excessive. The foods that are most addictive are often the cheapest, most convenient, and most heavily marketed. The healthy, whole foods of our ancestors often require more time, money, and effort to prepare. In this environment, making the healthy choice requires constant vigilance and effort, while succumbing to a craving requires almost none. You are not just fighting your own internal biology. You are fighting a multi-billion-dollar industry and an entire culture that has been structured to make you want the very foods you are trying to stop eating. There is one more fascinating layer to this story, a field of science that is revealing a new dimension to our cravings, the gut-brain axis. Your digestive tract is home to a vast and complex ecosystem of trillions of bacteria, known as your gut microbiome. This is often called your second brain, and for good reason. These tiny organisms are not just passive residents, they are active participants in your biology. They help you digest food, synthesize vitamins, and regulate your immune system. And now, we are learning that they can also influence your cravings. The different species of bacteria in your gut have different dietary preferences. Some thrive on fiber from vegetables, while others thrive on simple sugars. It is now believed that these colonies of bacteria can send signals up to your brain via the vagus nerve, the information superhighway connecting the gut and the brain. The sugar-loving bacteria may be able to manipulate your cravings, essentially sending signals that demand you provide them with their preferred fuel source. So, when you feel an overwhelming craving for sugar, it may not just be your brain or your emotions. It could be the trillions of microorganisms in your gut demanding to be fed. This adds a whole new meaning to the idea of having a gut feeling. So we are faced with a perfect storm. An ancient brain hardwired for survival. A modern food environment designed for hijack. A symphony of hormones thrown into chaos. A web of emotional and habitual conditioning, and a colony of gut bacteria with a mind of its own. When you see the full picture, the question, "Why do I have no willpower?" begins to seem absurd. It's like asking a single soldier to hold back an entire army on multiple fronts. Willpower is a finite resource, and it is no match for this onslaught of biology, chemistry, and psychology. The solution, therefore, is not to try and muscle through with more willpower. The solution is to be smarter. It's to understand the battlefield and to use strategy, not just brute force. The path to reclaiming control begins with changing your environment. You cannot out-willpower a craving for a food that is sitting in your pantry calling your name. The most powerful first step is to create a safe haven, a home environment that is free from the foods that trigger you. This is the principle of, you can't eat what you don't have. The next strategic move is to get off the blood sugar roller coaster. This means shifting your diet to focus on the three things that promote satiety and stable energy: protein, healthy fats, and fiber. Building your meals around these components will keep you feeling full and satisfied, preventing the blood sugar crashes that trigger those desperate physiological cravings. You must also become a detective of your own habits. When a craving strikes, pause and ask yourself, what is the cue? What am I really feeling? Am I truly hungry, or am I bored, stressed, or tired? By identifying the trigger, you can begin to experiment with a new routine. If the cue is stress, instead of reaching for a cookie, could you try a 5-minute walk, a few deep breaths, or listening to a calming song? The goal is to find a new, healthier way to get the same emotional reward. You also need to actively nurture your gut microbiome, your second brain. This means feeding the good bacteria with fiber-rich, prebiotic foods like vegetables, and introducing more beneficial bacteria with probiotic foods like yogurt, kefir, or sauerkraut. Over time, as you shift the balance of your gut ecosystem, you may find that your cravings themselves begin to change. In the end, this journey is about a fundamental shift in perspective. It is about moving from a place of self-blame to a place of self-compassion and biological understanding. You are not broken. You are a human being with a magnificent brain that is trying its best to keep you alive using an ancient playbook. The rules of the game have changed, but your brain hasn't. The struggle you feel is not a sign of your weakness. It is a sign of the incredible power of the hyperpalatable foods that have been designed to exploit your very nature. By understanding the science of why you can't stop, you gain the knowledge you need to change the game. You learn to manage your environment, to nourish your body in a way that balances your hormones, to recognize your emotional triggers, and to respect the deep, ancient programming within you. This is the path to freedom. It is not a quick fix, but a journey of learning to work with your biology, not against it, creating a new way of living where you are finally, truly in control.